The quarterly family meeting was held at Uncle Gerald's estate in Medina, same as always. The mahogany conference table that had belonged to great-grandfather Williams sat in the center of his library, surrounded by 12 leather chairs for the 12 voting members of the Williams Family Investment Fund. I arrived precisely at 2 p.m., carrying my usual manila folder of documents that everyone else assumed contained my part-time job receipts and budgeting worksheets. The other 11 members were already seated, their own folders thick with financial statements, investment reports and business proposals. Sophia. Cousin Marcus called out as I took my seat. Perfect timing. We were just discussing the quarterly returns. The Williams Family Investment Fund had been established by our great-grandfather in 1987 as a way to preserve and grow generational wealth. Each family member contributed a percentage of their income annually, and investment decisions were made by majority vote. Current fund value: approximately $47 million. What made me different from my cousins was that while they contributed their annual salaries and bonuses, I contributed from investment returns that they didn't know existed. My annual contribution to the family fund was $150,000. My actual annual income was closer to $23 million. Before we begin, Uncle Gerald said, settling into his role as fund administrator, I want to address some concerns that have been raised about fund governance. Here we go. Cousin Jennifer leaned forward. We've all been discussing this privately, and we think it's time for some difficult conversations about participation requirements. What kind of requirements? I asked, though I already knew where this was headed. Marcus pulled out a spreadsheet. We've been analyzing contribution ratios relative to voting power, and some patterns are concerning. The Williams Family Fund operated on a one-person, one-vote system regardless of contribution size. Great-grandfather had designed it that way to prevent wealthy family members from dominating decisions. Each of the 12 members had equal voting rights on investment choices. The issue, Cousin Rachel said diplomatically, is that some members contribute significantly more than others, but everyone gets equal say in how the money is invested. Cousin David nodded. For example, Marcus contributed $340,000 this year from his law firm profits. Jennifer put in $280,000 from her medical practice. Rachel contributed $190,000 from her consulting business. And then there's Sophia, Jennifer said, not unkindly but pointedly, who contributed $150,000 from her part-time bookkeeping work. Actually, my contribution came from a single dividend payment from one of my pharmaceutical holdings, but I didn't think this was the moment to clarify that detail. Now, Sophia, Uncle Gerald said carefully, we all appreciate your participation, but we need to be realistic about the optics of equal voting rights when contribution levels vary so dramatically. What are you suggesting? I asked. Marcus cleared his throat. We're suggesting a restructured voting system based on contribution percentages. More skin in the game, more say in investment decisions. That seems fair, I said. The room relaxed slightly. They'd been expecting resistance. However, Rachel continued, we also need to address some concerns about your financial judgment. Why financial judgment? Jennifer opened her own folder. We've been reviewing your voting history over the past 3 years. You consistently vote against our most profitable investments. This was true. I'd voted against their tech stock picks, their real estate ventures and their cryptocurrency investments. Not because the investments were bad, but because I already had significant exposure to those sectors through my personal portfolio and didn't need additional positions through the family fund. For instance, David said, you voted against the Amazon position that returned 34% last year. And you opposed the Tesla investment that's up 67% since we bought it, Marcus added. Plus the Seattle real estate fund that's generated 23% annual returns, Rachel said. Uncle Gerald nodded gravely. Sophia, we love you, but your track record suggests you don't understand modern investment strategies. Maybe traditional investing isn't your strength, Jennifer said gently. There's no shame in that. Not everyone has a head for financial markets. The thing was, I did understand modern investment strategies. I'd been implementing them successfully for 8 years, building a portfolio that had grown from my Stanford MBA graduation gift of $500,000 to my current net worth of approximately $180 million. I'd voted against their Amazon position because I already owned $12 million in Amazon stock through my personal accounts. I'd opposed Tesla because my portfolio included $8 million in Tesla shares plus positions in 3 other EV companies. The Seattle real estate fund overlapped with my existing $23 million commercial real estate portfolio. But explaining this would require revealing the scope of my personal investments, which I'd been deliberately keeping private. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Marcus exchanged glances with the others. We're proposing a new governance structure. Voting rights proportional to contributions, plus a competency requirement for investment committee participation. What kind of competency requirement? Minimum portfolio size, David said. If you're going to vote on investment decisions for a $47 million fund, you should have demonstrated success managing your own assets. How much are we talking about? $2 million minimum, Jennifer said. That's less than 5% of the total fund value. It's a reasonable threshold for serious investors. Uncle Gerald leaned forward sympathetically. Sophia, we know this seems harsh. But we're talking about family wealth preservation. We can't let sentiment override fiduciary responsibility. I understand, I said. The good news, Rachel said brightly, is that you can still benefit from fund returns as a beneficiary. You just wouldn't have voting rights until you meet the portfolio requirements. So I would contribute $150,000 annually but have no say in how it's invested? Think of it as professional money management, Marcus said. You get exposure to institutional quality investments without the responsibility of making complex financial decisions. The room was quiet while I considered this proposal. My 11 cousins and Uncle Gerald waiting to see how I'd react to being voted out of investment decisions due to financial incompetence. Can we put this to a vote? I asked. Are you sure? Jennifer asked. We don't want you to feel pressured. I'm sure. Uncle Gerald called for a formal vote on the restructured governance proposal. All in favor of implementing contribution-based voting rights and portfolio competency requirements? 11 hands went up. Marcus, Jennifer, Rachel, David, Uncle Gerald, and the 6 other cousins whose names I won't bore you with. Everyone except me. All opposed. I raised my hand alone. Motion carries 11-1, Uncle Gerald announced. The new governance structure will take effect at the next quarterly meeting. Congratulations, everyone, I said sincerely. I think this will work out well for all of us. The meeting continued with discussion of new investment opportunities. A biotech startup that Marcus wanted to back. A commercial real estate deal that Jennifer had identified. A cryptocurrency fund that David was enthusiastic about. I listened politely while they debated allocation percentages and risk assessments. Occasionally someone would ask for my thoughts, then remember that my opinion was no longer relevant under the new governance structure. After the meeting, several cousins approached me privately to express concern about the vote. Sophia, I hope you don't take this personally, Jennifer said. It's just business. I understand completely, I replied. You're still family, Marcus added. This doesn't change anything between us. Of course not. Rachel hugged me goodbye. Maybe this will motivate you to focus more on building your own portfolio. Financial independence is so empowering. I drove home to my modest apartment in Fremont, the same one-bedroom place I'd been renting since graduate school. Once inside, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop to review the Williams Family Investment Fund documentation. The fund had been established with very specific governance provisions written by great-grandfather Williams, who'd been paranoid about family disputes over money. According to the original trust documents, any significant governance changes required unanimous consent from all beneficiaries. What my cousins didn't realize was that their vote to restructure the fund had violated the trust agreement. The new governance structure was legally invalid. But more importantly, they'd overlooked a key provision in great-grandfather's original documents. While the fund operated on democratic voting principles for investment decisions, ultimate control rested with the primary beneficiary, defined as the family member who contributed the largest percentage of fund assets over the fund's lifetime. I opened my secure financial software and pulled up my contribution history. $150,000 annually for the past 8 years, totaling $1.2 million in direct contributions to the family fund. But there was another category of contributions that my cousins weren't aware of. Great-grandfather had included a provision allowing anonymous contributions through third-party investment vehicles. The idea was that family members could contribute additional assets without revealing their wealth to relatives who might become envious or demanding. Over the past 8 years, I'd been making anonymous contributions to the Williams Family Fund through a shell company called Cascade Family Holdings. These contributions totaled $31.7 million, approximately 67% of the fund's current asset base. Under great-grandfather's trust provisions, this made me the controlling beneficiary with authority to dissolve the fund, remove trustees, or override investment decisions. My cousins had just voted to exclude me from fund governance while being completely unaware that I controlled the fund. I opened my encrypted email and sent a message to my attorney. Please review Williams Family Trust governance provisions. Need to understand dissolution procedures. The response came back within 2 hours. Reviewed documents. As controlling beneficiary, you have unilateral authority to dissolve fund and distribute assets. Requires 30-day notice to all beneficiaries. Shall I prepare dissolution papers? I spent the evening thinking about this decision. The rational part of my brain knew that dissolving the fund would hurt innocent family members who'd been counting on those investment returns for their retirement planning. Uncle Gerald had contributed faithfully for 30 years. Several of my cousins had significant portions of their net worth tied up in fund assets. But the emotional part of my brain was tired of being called financially irresponsible by people whose investment success was subsidized by my anonymous contributions. The next morning I called my attorney. Please prepare the dissolution papers, I said. I want to terminate the Williams Family Investment Fund. Understood. The trust provisions require distribution of assets proportional to lifetime contributions. Given your anonymous contribution history, you'll receive approximately 68% of fund assets. How much are we talking about? Based on current valuations, your distribution would be approximately $32 million. The remaining $15 million would be distributed among the other 11 beneficiaries. And their individual distributions? Uncle Gerald would receive about $3.2 million based on his contribution history. The cousins would receive between $800,000 and $1.4 million each, depending on their years of participation. So instead of managing a $47 million fund with professional investment advisory services, my cousins would each be left with individual accounts ranging from $800,000 to $1.4 million. Still significant money, but without the institutional advantages and diversification benefits of the larger fund. What about timing? Dissolution can be effective 30 days after notice is provided. Asset liquidation and distribution would take an additional 60 to 90 days. Please proceed with the paperwork. I'll need written authorization for a decision of this magnitude. You'll have it this afternoon. After I hung up, I drafted the authorization letter and sent it through our secure system. By tomorrow, Uncle Gerald would receive formal notice that the Williams Family Investment Fund was being dissolved by order of the controlling beneficiary. But first I had a phone call to make. I dialed Marcus's direct line at his law firm. Sophia, he answered cheerfully. I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling about yesterday's meeting? I'm feeling good about it, I said. It clarified some things for me. Good. I was worried you might be upset about the vote. Not at all. It got me thinking about my own portfolio development. That's the spirit. Have you given any thought to what you want to focus on? Actually, I wanted to ask you about something. You mentioned yesterday that fund members should have at least $2 million in personal assets to qualify for voting rights. That's right. It's a reasonable threshold for serious investors. I was curious, do anonymous trust contributions count toward that threshold? Anonymous contributions? What do you mean? Well, what if someone had been contributing to the family fund through shell companies or investment vehicles? Would those contributions count toward the portfolio requirement? Marcus laughed. Sophia, that's a very sophisticated question. But anonymous contributions would still count if they could be verified. Why do you ask? Just wondering about the mechanics. The trust documents mention provisions for third-party contributions. You've been reading the trust documents? That's impressive. Most family members never bother with the legal details. Great-grandfather was thorough. I wanted to understand how everything worked. Well, to answer your question, yes, any contributions that could be documented would count toward portfolio requirements. But we're talking about theoretical scenarios. Anonymous contributions would be nearly impossible to verify. Unless the anonymous contributor chose to reveal themselves. I suppose, but why would they? The whole point of anonymity is privacy. Good point, I said. One more question. What happens if it turns out that someone has been contributing much more than the others realized? What do you mean much more? I mean, what if someone's total contributions were larger than everyone else's combined? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Sophia, what exactly are you getting at? I'm getting at the fact that I've been contributing to the Williams Family Fund through Cascade Family Holdings for the past 8 years. Cascade Family Holdings? I've never heard of that. It's one of my investment vehicles. Total contributions, $31.7 million. Sophia, that's not possible. Why isn't it possible? Because you work part-time doing bookkeeping. You can't afford to contribute $31 million to anything. I can afford whatever I want, Marcus. I have a net worth of approximately $180 million. The line went quiet. That's not funny, Sophia. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to explain that your vote yesterday was based on incomplete information. Sophia, you drive a 15-year-old Honda. You live in a studio apartment. I live modestly because I choose to. It keeps me grounded and helps me make better investment decisions. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. $180 million to be precise. Built through strategic investments over 8 years since I graduated from Stanford. But you let everyone think. I let you think what you wanted to think. You assumed that because I live simply, I must be financially unsuccessful. Sophia, if this is true, why didn't you ever say anything? Why would I? You all seem so proud of your investment expertise. I didn't want to diminish your sense of accomplishment. But we just voted you out of the fund. I know. Which is why I'm dissolving it. What? As the controlling beneficiary, I'm exercising my right to dissolve the Williams Family Investment Fund. The papers are being filed this afternoon. Sophia, you can't do that. Actually, I can. Great-grandfather's trust documents are very clear about governance hierarchy. What does that mean for everyone else? It means you'll each receive a distribution based on your lifetime contributions. Uncle Gerald will get about $3.2 million. You and the other cousins will get between $800,000 and $1.4 million each. And you? I'll receive approximately $32 million, since I contributed 68% of the fund's assets. Sophia, please, don't do this. We can fix the governance structure. We can give you voting rights back. Based on what? My financial competency that you questioned yesterday. We were wrong. We didn't have complete information. You had the information you cared about. You knew I lived modestly and worked part-time. You assumed that meant I was financially irresponsible. We made a mistake. You made a judgment about my character based on your assumptions about my bank account. Sophia, please. The fund has been in our family for 37 years. Don't destroy that legacy because of one bad vote. I'm not destroying anything, Marcus. I'm distributing everyone's contributions back to them. You'll all be free to make your own investment decisions without worrying about my financially irresponsible vote. But we'll lose all the advantages of scale. The institutional access, the diversification, the professional management. You'll have your individual portfolios to manage. Isn't that what successful investors prefer? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. How long do we have? 30 days notice, then 60 to 90 days for asset liquidation and distribution. Is there anything we can do to change your mind? You could apologize. I'm apologizing. I'm so sorry. We all are. Are you sorry for voting me out or sorry for discovering I had more money than you thought? Both. I mean, we're sorry for making assumptions. But if I actually had been financially unsuccessful, you'd still think the vote was justified. Marcus didn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. The dissolution papers will be filed this afternoon. Uncle Gerald will receive official notice tomorrow. Sophia, wait. I hung up. Within an hour my phone was buzzing with calls from other family members. Jennifer, Rachel, David, Uncle Gerald, and various cousins whose names I'd forgotten. All of them had heard from Marcus, all of them wanting to understand what was happening. I let them all go to voicemail. By Thursday morning, the business press would be reporting that a $47 million family investment fund was being dissolved by its controlling beneficiary. By Friday, my cousins would be scrambling to find new investment advisors for their individual distributions. And I would continue living in my modest apartment, driving my old Honda, and working part-time helping small business owners organize their finances. Because despite what my family believed, some things were more important than managing large sums of money effectively. Though I had to admit watching their accounts freeze was going to be satisfying. Just like I told my attorney they would be.
The dinner table was silent as my husband, Marcus, stood up with a champagne glass in hand. His mother smiled excitedly, and his sister, Amanda, could barely sit still. I sat quietly, my fork hovering over my untouched salmon, already knowing what was coming. "I have an announcement," Marcus said proudly. "Jessica and I are getting married next month." His mother, Martha, clapped with joy, and Amanda squealed. Neither of them looked at me. I wasn't surprised. They had been ignoring me for months. But Marcus, his father, Henry, said, looking confused, "What about Sarah? You're already married." Marcus grinned, and my stomach tightened. Actually, Sarah and I were never legally married. It was just a ceremony, nothing official. "Right, honey?" Everyone turned to look at me, waiting for tears, anger, or a scene. Instead, I calmly set down my fork and took out my phone. "Is that what you think, Marcus? My name is Sarah Chin, and at 34, I was watching my husband of 8 years try to erase our marriage with a lie. What he didn't know, his perfect plan had a big problem. Me. I had known about Jessica for months. The late nights, secret texts, sudden effort in his appearance, it was obvious. But it was his mother, Martha, who confirmed my suspicions 3 months ago. I overheard her whispering on the phone in her garden. "Yes, Jessica dear, he's handling it. Once we prove there's no legal marriage, you two can have your wedding. Sarah won't get a thing." That day, something in me changed. The pain turned into determination. I spent the next 3 months gathering proof, setting a trap, and waiting for this moment. Marcus smirked. "What's on your phone, Sarah? Pictures from our wedding? Those don't mean anything legally." Martha chimed in with fake sympathy. "Dear, we know this is hard, but without proper registration, that ceremony was just a party." I met her gaze, remembering all the times she had looked down on me. My career, my background, my choice to wait on having kids. She thought she had won. "Actually," I said, opening my email, "I have something better than wedding photos. Want to see?" Marcus's smile faded. "Sarah, don't make this difficult. Jessica's waiting outside to join us for dessert. We wanted to do this properly, give you time to understand." "Understand what?" I interrupted. "That you plan to marry another woman while still married to me? That you and your mother lied about our marriage? That you secretly moved our assets before making this announcement?" Martha turned pale. Amanda froze, staring at her plate. Henry looked at his wife and son, his confusion turning to realization. "What are you talking about?" Marcus snapped, but I saw fear in his eyes. I turned to Henry, who had always been kind to me, though he rarely stood up to his wife. "Henry, did you know Martha helped Marcus remove my name from your family's summer house deed last month?" Henry's head whipped toward his wife. "Martha?" "She's lying," Martha said quickly, but her hands shook as she grabbed her wine glass. I kept scrolling through my phone. "I have all the documents here, including the original deed where my name was clearly listed. Funny how it disappeared just before this announcement." Marcus slammed his hand on the table, making the plates shake. "Enough. Show me proof we're legally married. Right now." I smiled, thinking about the documents safe in my lawyer's office, with copies in multiple places. "Oh, I will. But first, shouldn't we invite Jessica in? She should hear this too." Right then, the doorbell rang. Martha jumped up, eager for a distraction. "I'll get it." I leaned back in my chair, watching everything unfold. Jessica would walk in, expecting to see a broken wife giving up. Instead, she was about to find out that her future with Marcus was built on nothing but lies. The trap was set. Now it was time to watch it spring. Jessica walked into the dining room confidently, her high heels clicking on the floor. She was everything Martha had always wanted in a daughter-in-law. Young, elegant, from a rich family. The emerald ring on her finger sparkled, and I noticed how Martha smiled proudly. It was a family heirloom she had never offered to me. "Sorry I'm late," Jessica said, but her smile faded when she saw my calm expression. You thought I'd be gone by now." I finished for her. "Please, sit down. You need to hear this too." Marcus started to argue, but his father, Henry, stopped him. "Let her speak. I want to know what's going on in my own family." I pulled up a photo on my phone and held it out. "This is from the county clerk's office. 3 months ago, someone tried to check our marriage records. They pretended to be me, but the signature was fake. Martha, would you like to explain?" Martha froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. "When that didn't work," I continued, "someone tried to change the records to show our marriage was never official. The clerk's office found it suspicious and informed me. They also kept copies of everything, including the fingerprints on the forms. Martha, those are yours." Jessica glanced between Marcus and his mother, looking unsure. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Marcus snapped. "Sarah's just making trouble. We're not legally married. I made sure of that." "You made sure?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like how you made sure to hide the beach house you bought last year. The one you paid for with our shared money but only put under your name." Henry's head shot up. "You bought another house?" I turned to Jessica. "Did he tell you about that house? Or about the secret account he's been moving money into for the past 6 months?" Jessica's face went pale. "Marcus, don't listen to her," Martha said quickly. "She's just jealous. Marcus told us you're perfect for this family. Young, able to have children, unlike someone who's too focused on her career." It was a typical insult from Martha, but it didn't bother me anymore. "Actually," I said, opening another email, "let's talk about family. Jessica, did you know Marcus was married before? Before me?" Silence filled the room. "What?" Martha whispered. 10 years ago, in Vegas. It was a quick wedding. He paid her to stay quiet and got it annulled. But the records still exist. Funny how he never told you." Jessica sat down heavily, her perfect future with Marcus falling apart. "That's enough," Marcus shouted, his calm mask finally breaking. "None of this matters. Our marriage isn't legal, and you can't prove otherwise." I smiled. "Actually, about that, Henry, would you like to see the real marriage registration? The one your son filed himself. The one that proves he committed fraud when he bought that house under only his name." I handed Henry my phone. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the documents. "Marcus," he said, his voice full of disappointment. "What have you done?" "It's fake," Marcus insisted, but sweat was forming on his forehead. "Like how you faked my signature to take my name off the summer house?" I said quietly. "The forensic report on that was very interesting. My lawyer has copies." Martha shot up from her chair, knocking it over. "You investigated us. How dare you?" "No, Martha. How dare you? How dare you help your son commit fraud? How dare you try to steal from me? The clerk's office already filed a report about your actions." Jessica stood up, pulling off the emerald ring and dropping it on the table. "You told me she agreed to step aside," she said to Marcus, her voice shaking. "You said everything was taken care of." "Jessica, wait." Marcus reached for her, but she stepped back. "My father's a judge," she said, tears in her eyes. "What do you think he'll say about this?" Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking quickly as she left. A moment later, we heard her car start and speed away. Martha collapsed back into her chair, looking shocked. "This isn't how this was supposed to happen." "No," I agreed, standing up. "You thought I was still the naive woman who married Marcus 8 years ago. The one who ignored your insults, who tried so hard to earn your approval. But people change, Martha. They learn. They prepare." I turned to Marcus, meeting his eyes. "The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow. I suggest you read them carefully, especially the part about your forgeries. My lawyer is very thorough." "You can't do this," he whispered, defeated. "I already have." I picked up my purse and looked at Henry. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this. You deserved better than a son who lies and a wife who helps him." As I walked toward the door, I heard Henry push back his chair. "Martha," he said sternly, "we need to talk. And Marcus, call your lawyer. You're going to need one." I stepped outside into the cool evening air, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I heard Martha's panicked voice and Marcus's weak excuses, but none of it mattered anymore. I had the truth, the proof, and most importantly, my freedom. And I wasn't finished yet. The weeks after that dinner went exactly as I planned. Marcus got the divorce papers, and each page showed how well I had recorded all his lies. When he realized I knew about his secret offshore account, the look on his face almost made the last 8 years worth it. Martha tried to fix things, of course. One morning, she showed up at my office, looking as elegant as ever, holding a fancy handbag I had once admired. "Sarah, dear," she said sweetly, "surely we can talk this through as a family." I didn't even look up. Family doesn't steal identities, Martha. The clerk's office was very curious about how you got my personal information to fake those documents. Her face went pale, but she kept going. That was a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help Marcus with the paperwork. The police don't see it that way. I cut in, finally meeting her eyes. Neither does Henry, from what I hear. That one hurt. Henry had moved out the day after our dinner and into their legal beach house. The one Marcus hadn't tried to hide. 2 days later, he filed for divorce. He couldn't forgive Martha for helping Marcus commit fraud. "You've ruined this family," she snapped, finally losing her calm. I smiled. "No, Martha. You and Marcus did that. I just exposed it." After she left, I got an unexpected call. It was Jessica. "I just wanted to thank you," she said softly. "My father told me that if I had married Marcus, I could have been part of the fraud. You saved me from a huge mistake." "He would have done to you what he did to me," I said. "You deserve to know the truth." The divorce went quickly, especially after the court saw the proof of Marcus's fraud. The hidden beach house, the fake signatures, none of it impressed the judge. Martha's attempt to change county records didn't help their case either. One evening, Henry called me. His voice was heavy with regret. "I knew Marcus had changed, but I never imagined this. I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have seen it sooner. You're not responsible for their choices," I told him. "You did the right thing when you learned the truth. That's what matters." Even Marcus's sister, Amanda, reached out. She found proof that Marcus had secretly taken money from their grandmother's trust fund. The money meant for both of them. Suddenly, her golden boy brother didn't seem so perfect anymore. In the end, the divorce settlement worked out well for me. Marcus's fraud backfired, and I got more than I ever expected. The hidden beach house was sold, and the money helped pay back what he had stolen from me. Martha wasn't so lucky either. The clerk's office pressed charges for identity theft and attempted fraud. Her once glamorous social circle started avoiding her. Even her country club, the place she loved so much, quietly suggested she should resign. 6 months later, I sat in my new apartment, sharing a bottle of wine with my friend Lisa, the one who had helped me gather evidence. "I still can't believe Martha thought she could mess with legal records and get away with it." Lisa laughed. "What did she think this was, the 1950s? I shook my head, smiling. She never thought I'd fight back. None of them did. That was their mistake. "And now?" Lisa asked. "What's next for you?" I walked to the window, looking at the city lights. "I'm thinking about starting my own consulting firm. I've certainly learned a lot about uncovering fraud." We laughed, but I was serious. Through this whole mess, I had discovered a strength I never knew I had. Marcus and Martha had tried to erase me from their lives, to write me out of their story. Instead, they helped me write my own. One of strength, preparation, and victory. Marcus, last I heard, was living in a small apartment, his reputation ruined. Jessica had moved away to escape the scandal. And Martha? She was doing community service, her perfect social status crumbling. Henry called me sometimes to check in. He was rebuilding his life, focusing on Amanda and their grandmother. We met for coffee now and then, two people healing from the same betrayal, finding comfort in the truth. As I watched the sunset, I felt completely at peace. Marcus had thought he could erase me, start over like I never existed. Instead, he gave me the push I needed to fight back, not with anger, but with intelligence and preparation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about coming out stronger, wiser, and completely free. I raised my glass to that truth, grateful for everything I had learned and for the future ahead. "Sit, Duke. Come on, boy, sit," I begged, but my German shepherd just stared at me before knocking over another vase. Luna, my Labrador, was already running around, carrying up the new pillows I had just bought. "See? This is exactly what I was saying," my mother-in-law, Patricia, said with a smirk as she stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "These dogs are completely out of control. I told James you weren't fit to take care of them." My name is Emma, and until 3 months ago, my dogs were well trained. Duke and Luna knew advanced commands and were always gentle, but suddenly they started acting differently. At first, it was small things. Duke stopped listening to me but obeyed everyone else. Luna started destroying things, but only my things. Then they started having accidents inside the house, but only in my home office. "I don't understand," I whispered as Duke ripped apart another cushion. "They were never like this before." Patricia sighed and pulled out her phone to record the mess. "They need a firm hand. James always said you were too soft. Maybe you should find them a better home." My stomach tightened. James, my husband, was away for 6 months on military duty, and since he left, Patricia had been around more and more. She never liked me much, and lately she had been even harsher. "They're my family," I said firmly, trying to catch Luna as she ran past. "I'm not giving them up." "Family?" Patricia scoffed. "They're just dogs, and they don't respect you at all. Look at this mess." I looked around the room, feeling like I might cry. The strange thing was, my neighbors said the dogs were well behaved on walks. The pet sitter had no issues when I was at work. It was only when I was home that they acted up. That night, after Patricia left and the dogs calmed down, I sat in my messy living room watching old videos. There they were 6 months ago, doing tricks. 4 months ago, playing gently with kids. 2 months ago, walking perfectly on a leash. What had changed? Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from James. "Mom sent me videos of the dogs." "What's going on, Em?" "She says they're out of control." I started to type a reply but stopped. How could I explain that they only misbehaved around me, and that they were at their worst when Patricia was watching? Something wasn't right. The next morning, while cleaning up, I noticed something strange. Duke's old training treats near the back door. We hadn't used those in months, but there they were. I picked one up, confused. These were definitely the old treats, but how did they get here? Then I remembered. 2 weeks ago, I had seen Patricia's car in my driveway when I was supposed to be at work. She said she was just checking on the dogs since she had a spare key. At the time, I hadn't thought much about it. Now I wasn't so sure. I walked into my home office where the dogs had been having accidents. Behind my desk, I found more treats. And something else, a small red clicker, like the ones used for dog training. My hands shook. This wasn't my clicker. Mine was blue, sitting untouched in the kitchen drawer. The puzzle pieces clicked together. The dogs were fine for everyone else, but acted up only around me. Old treats appeared out of nowhere. Patricia kept pushing me to give them away. She was always ready to show James videos of their bad behavior. Could she really be behind all of this? That night, I made a plan. I bought 3 pet cameras and placed them around the house. One in the living room, one in my office, and one near the back door. Then I waited. For days, I stuck to my usual routine. I went to work, took my lunch break at the same time, and kept everything normal. The dogs continued their strange behavior, angels for others, troublemakers for me. But now I was gathering proof. After a week, I checked the camera footage, my heart pounding. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then, on the 4th day, at 10:30 a.m., the back door opened. Patricia walked in, carrying a bag from the pet store and smiling. I watched, fists clench, as she pulled out the special treats and the red clicker. "Okay, boys," she said sweetly as Duke and Luna wagged their tails. "Time for some special training. Let's show Emma what bad dogs you can be." I watched in shock as the video played. Patricia had been coming into my house while I was at work, training my dogs to misbehave. She brought their favorite treats and used a training clicker to teach them to ignore me. "Good boy, Duke," she said in the video, clicking the device. "When Emma says sit, you jump up instead." "That's right." She gave him treats, undoing all the training I had worked so hard on. With Luna, she was even trickier. "Here, sweet girl," she said, putting one of my shoes in front of her. Click, treat. Click, treat. Over and over, she trained Luna to think that chewing on my things was good. She spent hours with them, playing recordings of my voice and rewarding them for doing the opposite of what I said. It was all part of her plan. Soon, she told them, giving more treats. James will see that Emma can't handle you. We'll find you a better home. My hands shook as I skipped through more footage. She had turned my own dogs against me, confusing them and making me look like a bad owner. Then my phone buzzed. A message from James. Mom says things are getting worse with the dogs. Maybe we should think about what's best for them. Before I could answer, another text came. She sent me a video from today. They're destroying the house. This isn't like you. I clenched my fists. Of course, she had sent videos, but only after she had trained them to cause trouble. The next morning, I set a trap. Patricia let herself in as usual, not knowing I was watching the live camera feed from my car down the street. Time for your special lessons, she said, taking out the treats. Let's make a big mess for Emma. I had seen enough. I stepped out of my car and walked to my back door, my phone ready. Having fun? I said, pushing the door open. Patricia jumped, dropping the treats. Duke and Luna ran to me, wagging their tails, before remembering their training. Emma, she gasped, you're supposed to be at work. I picked up one of the fallen treats. Funny. These are the treats we stopped using months ago. And is that a training clicker in your hand? I was just helping, she stammered. Since you clearly can't control them. Let's watch some videos, shall we? I held up my phone. Like the part where you teach Duke to knock things over when I call him. Very clever. Her face turned pale as I played clip after clip of her secret training sessions. Duke and Luna sat beside me, no longer listening to her clicker. You don't understand, she tried. I was doing what's best. For who? I cut in. The dogs, James, or yourself to make me look bad. I never. Save it, I snapped. I've already sent these videos to James. Every single one. Right on cue, her phone rang. James' name lit up the screen. You might want to answer that, I said, scratching Duke's ears. I think he has some questions about your helpful dog sitting. Her hands shook as she picked up the call. I could hear James' angry voice demanding answers. Duke and Luna stayed close to me, finally free from her tricks, as we watched her world fall apart. The fallout was swift and decisive. James, still deployed but now fully aware of his mother's manipulation, was livid. The video calls that followed were intense, with Patricia trying to defend her actions while James systematically broke down every excuse she offered. How could you do this? His voice crackled through the video chat, his face tight with anger. Those dogs are family. Emma is family. And you've been deliberately trying to destroy that. I was only thinking of you, sweetheart, Patricia pleaded. I just wanted to show you that she's not. Not what, Mom? Not good enough. Emma's been running our household, taking care of our dogs, and supporting my career while I'm deployed. And you've been sneaking around, actively trying to sabotage her. I sat quietly during these conversations, letting James handle his mother while I focused on rehabilitating Duke and Luna. It took time and patience to undo Patricia's malicious training. We had to restart from basic commands, rebuilding their trust and confidence in responding to my voice. The breakthrough came during a sunny afternoon in the backyard. I was working with Duke on his sit command, using positive reinforcement and our original training techniques. For the first time in weeks, he responded instantly, his brown eyes fixed on mine with that old familiar trust. Good boy. I praised, my voice thick with emotion. Luna, not wanting to be left out, trotted over and sat perfectly as well. No chaos, no destruction. Just my well-trained, loving dogs being themselves again. I sent a video of this moment to James, who shared it with his entire unit. The support that flooded in was overwhelming. Even his commanding officer, a devoted dog owner himself, sent a message expressing his outrage at Patricia's actions and his admiration for how we were handling it. Patricia, faced with irrefutable evidence and the loss of her son's trust, finally broke down and admitted everything. She convinced herself that by making me appear incompetent, she was somehow protecting James. The dogs had been an easy target, beloved family members whose behavior could be manipulated to serve her agenda. I never thought about how it would hurt them. She admitted during a family counseling session James had insisted on via video call. Or how it would hurt you, Emma. I was so focused on proving you weren't right for James that I became someone I don't recognize. The road to reconciliation would be long, and trust wouldn't be rebuilt overnight. James made it clear that when he returned home, things would be different. Patricia's unlimited access to our house was revoked, and any future visits would be supervised until she could prove herself trustworthy. Life settled into a new rhythm. The pet camera stayed up, no longer needed for surveillance but serving as a way for James to check in on his whole family while deployed. He loved watching Duke and Luna's progress as they returned to their well-behaved selves, often calling during their training sessions to cheer us on. As for Patricia, the incident forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself. She started seeing a therapist to work through her control issues and enrolled in a positive parenting class, her first step toward understanding healthy family dynamics. 6 months later, when James returned home, he found a house full of joy instead of chaos. Duke and Luna performed their entire repertoire of tricks flawlessly, showing off for their dad without a single overturned vase or shredded pillow in sight. "You know what this whole thing taught me?" James said that night as we sat on the porch watching the dogs play in the yard. "Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones making the most noise. You could have exposed Mom immediately, but you gathered evidence, protected our dogs, and handled it all with grace." I leaned against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of family, both human and canine, surrounding us. "I learned something too," I replied. "Sometimes the worst situations bring out the best solutions." Those pet cameras, I'm thinking of donating some to the local shelter. They help adopters bond with their new pets remotely. Duke and Luna rushed over, squeezing between us on the porch swing, their tails wagging contentedly. They were more than just pets. They were the catalyst that exposed a deeper family issue and, ultimately, led to its resolution. As I scratched Luna's ears and watched Duke rest his head on James's lap, I realized that sometimes the happy ending isn't about everything being perfect. It's about being strong enough to protect what matters, wise enough to handle conflict with grace, and loving enough to leave room for redemption. Even Patricia, who now visits monthly under our new boundaries, has learned to show love without control. Last week, she brought over proper training treats and handed them to me to use. I first realized something was wrong when our family doctor, Dr. Martin, started visiting unexpectedly. He had been our doctor for years, but suddenly he was coming by every few days, always when my husband, Marcus, was at work. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, would greet him with fake concern. "Amanda, dear, Dr. Martin is just here to check on you," she would say sweetly. "We're also worried about your episodes." Episodes. That's what they called it whenever I questioned Marcus's late nights, expensive gifts, or the lipstick stains on his shirts. My name is Sarah Mitchell. At 35, I discovered that my husband was trying to have me declared mentally unstable, not because I was sick, but because he wanted me out of the way. It all started 3 months ago when I asked Marcus about a hotel charge on our credit card. Instead of denying it, he called his mother. The next day, Eleanor moved in, saying, "Just until you're feeling better." Soon my sister-in-law, Kate, started visiting daily, acting worried and spreading rumors about my behavior. I might have believed them if I hadn't overheard a conversation in the garden. Kate was saying, "The resort is booked for June. Jessica is so excited about the wedding. We just need to take care of Amanda before then." Jessica, Marcus's young assistant, the one who sent him messages late at night. Eleanor replied, "Dr. Martin is waiting for the right moment. One more outburst, and he'll have enough to sign the papers. Marcus will get guardianship, and by the time Amanda can fight back, it'll be too late." I froze, realizing their plan. Marcus wanted me declared mentally ill so he could marry Jessica without a messy divorce. Eleanor had never liked me. She thought I was too old and too independent. After that, I noticed everything. The bitter taste in my food, probably from the vitamins Eleanor gave me, the way they tracked my every move, how Marcus would start fights and secretly record me. But I wasn't going to let them win. As a pharmaceutical sales representative, I knew about medications. I stopped taking their vitamins and pretended not to notice their tricks. I recorded their conversations, set up hidden cameras, and found a real psychiatrist, Dr. Chen, to back me up. Then, I found wedding invitation samples in Kate's purse, dated June 15th. They were running out of patience. One day, Eleanor called out, "Amanda, Dr. Martin is here again." I looked in the mirror, making sure I appeared calm and collected. It was time to let them think their plan was working. In the living room, Eleanor, Kate, and Dr. Martin sat waiting. Eleanor held the tissue, pretending to be sad. "Amanda, please sit down," Dr. Martin said. I did, keeping my hands folded in my lap. Through the window, I saw Marcus pulling into the driveway, right on time. Eleanor sighed. We're doing this because we love you. We've noticed such alarming changes in your behavior. Kate added, the paranoia, the mood swings, the obsessive cleaning. Dr. Martin nodded, ready to write something down. It might be best if you spent some time in a facility. I smiled. For the first time, Eleanor looked nervous. They expected me to cry, to argue, to prove their point. Instead, I stayed calm. I see, I said. And when were you planning to tell me about the wedding? The room fell silent. Marcus stiffened. What wedding? I turned to Kate. The invitations in your purse are beautiful. Blushed pink suits, Jessica, don't you think? Eleanor's grip on my hand tightened. Dr. Martin, you see, she's going through Kate's things. This paranoia is getting worse. I pulled my hand away. Actually, Dr. Martin, I think you should see what I have to show you. They didn't know it yet, but their plan was about to fall apart. I had proof, the fake medical records, the drugs, the secret wedding plans. Most importantly, I had witnesses. They thought I was their victim. They were wrong. Before we continue, I said, taking out my phone, we should wait for one more person. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Eleanor stiffened, her fake concern replaced by real worry. Before anyone could react, I stood up. I'll get it, I said, smiling. She's my guest. At the door stood Dr. Lisa Barrett, a respected forensic psychiatrist. For the past month, she had been evaluating me, gathering proof that I was perfectly sane. Dr. Martin, she said coolly as she stepped inside, I'm surprised to see you here, considering the ethics complaint I filed against you this morning. Dr. Martin paled. He knew what that meant. His involvement in my family's scheme could cost him his medical license. Marcus stepped forward. What is this, Amanda? I sat down, feeling calmer than I had in months. Let's talk about the medications Eleanor's been mixing into my food. That's ridiculous, Eleanor snapped, but her hands trembled as she clutched her tissue. Dr. Barrett set down her briefcase. Actually, lab tests confirmed that food from this house contained substances known to cause anxiety and confusion. Care to explain, Dr. Martin? Kate jumped up, her face red. See, this is what we mean. She's acting paranoid, collecting food samples. We also have this, I said, holding up my tablet. I pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the room. Once she's committed, Marcus can file for emergency custody. The lawyers say he'll be able to handle all the property matters without her consent. Marcus lunged for the tablet, but I didn't flinch. That's just a copy. The originals are already with the authorities, along with the wedding invitations and your prenuptial agreement with Jessica. The room erupted into chaos. Eleanor sobbed, real tears this time. Kate shouted about privacy. Dr. Martin looked ready to disappear. Marcus just stared at me. How long have you known? About Jessica? From the start. About your plan to have me committed. Long enough to build an airtight case. I turned to Dr. Barrett. Would you say I seem mentally unstable? Not at all, she replied. In fact, you've remained remarkably clear-headed, despite their efforts to manipulate you. Eleanor made one last attempt. She's tricked you. She's hiding her symptoms. You mean the ones you tried to create with unprescribed drugs? I asked. Our security cameras caught you tampering with my food. The police are very interested in that footage. The word police hit them like a slap. Marcus collapsed into a chair, pale. The police are involved. Falsely committing someone is a serious crime, Dr. Barrett said, as is drugging them and trying to take control of their assets. I stood smoothing my slacks. Divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow, and I've filed a restraining order against all of you. I turned to Eleanor. You should start packing. I want you out of my house within the hour. Eleanor scoffed. This house belongs to the family. Check the deed, I said. Marcus signed it over to me last year to avoid tax issues. One of the few times his shady accounting worked in my favor. Kate opened her mouth, but Marcus stopped her. He knew I was right. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to leave, I said simply. The police will be here soon, and I'm sure you'll want to call your lawyers first. They fled. Eleanor and Kate nearly tripped over each other. Dr. Martin mumbled about another appointment and rushed out. Marcus lingered at the door. I never thought you'd figure it out, he admitted. You always seemed so trusting, naive. I finished. That worked in my favor. While you were busy underestimating me, I was documenting everything. After they left, Dr. Barrett helped me gather the last bits of evidence, more drugs hidden in the kitchen, notebooks full of their fake reports about me. Are you sure you want to press charges? She asked. You could just divorce him and move on. I thought about the fear they tried to instill in me, the way they tried to make me doubt my own mind. They need to face consequences, I said, not just for me, but so they never do this to anyone else. As I walked Dr. Barrett out, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked stronger. They had tried to break me, but instead, they had only proven how capable I really was. For the first time in months, the house was quiet. A peaceful quiet. The kind that comes from taking back control of your own story. 3 months after that confrontation, I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing the final divorce settlement. Marcus had tried to fight it at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. Between the recordings, the documented attempts to drug me, and Dr. Martin's eventual confession, he had no choice but to agree to my terms. Everything's been transferred to your name, my lawyer confirmed, sliding the papers across her desk. The house, your joint investments, and half of all marital assets. Plus, the restraining orders against Marcus, Eleanor, and Kate remain in effect. I signed where indicated, each signature feeling like another step toward freedom. What happened with Dr. Martin's medical license? Suspended pending further investigation. The medical board was particularly interested in Eleanor's admission that she'd been getting prescription medications from him to spike your food. The criminal charges had shocked our social circle. Eleanor's country club friends suddenly couldn't remember her name. Kate's wedding planning business lost most of its clients. Apparently, people were hesitant to trust someone who'd helped plot a false psychiatric commitment. As for Jessica, Marcus's young assistant turned would-be bride, she'd abandoned him the moment she realized there would be no luxury lifestyle waiting for her. Last I heard, she'd taken a job in another state, desperate to escape the scandal. I left my lawyer's office and drove to my favorite cafe, where my friend Beth was waiting. She'd been my rock throughout this ordeal, helping me gather evidence and keeping me sane when I doubted myself. So it's really over, she said as I sat down. How does it feel? I thought about it as I stirred my coffee. Liberating. But also sad, in a way. Not because I miss them, but because I can't believe they thought so little of me that they believed their plan would work. Their biggest mistake was underestimating you, Beth said firmly. They saw what they wanted to see, the quiet, accommodating wife who would never fight back. She was right. For years I played that role, smoothing over conflicts and keeping the peace. Even when I first suspected Marcus's affair, I tried to fix things quietly. That's what they counted on, my tendency to avoid confrontation. Did you hear about Eleanor? Beth asked, lowering her voice. She tried to join the hospital board last week. They turned her down flat. Apparently, conspiring to have someone falsely committed doesn't look good on a resume. I couldn't help but laugh. Eleanor had always been so proud of her social standing, her committee memberships, her position in society. Now she was experiencing what it felt like to be an outsider. Marcus wasn't faring much better. His law firm had asked him to take an indefinite leave of absence once the story broke. No one wanted a lawyer who had conspired to have his wife committed for convenience. The house feels different now, I told Beth. Peaceful. I repainted everything, rearranged the furniture. It finally feels like mine. And the new security system probably helps, she added with a grin. I smiled, thinking of the state-of-the-art cameras and alarms I'd installed. Not because I was afraid, but because I'd learned the value of protecting what was mine. That evening, I walked through my house, appreciating the quiet. The guest room where Eleanor had stayed was now my home office. Kate's favorite snooping spot in the garden had been replanted with roses. Every space they had tainted had been reclaimed and renewed. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Barrett. Thought you'd want to know. The medical board's investigation is expanding. Looks like you weren't Dr. Martin's first convenient diagnosis. I wasn't surprised. People like them rarely tried something like this just once. But I had stopped their pattern, not just for myself, but for anyone else they might have targeted. As I got ready for bed, I caught myself smiling at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the one they had tried to paint as unstable. She was strong, confident, and utterly sane, perhaps the sanest person in that whole situation. A year ago, I would have been devastated by their betrayal, but now I realized it had given me something valuable. The knowledge that I was stronger than anyone, including myself, had believed. I picked up my journal, a real one this time, not the fake symptom diary they had wanted me to keep, and wrote one final entry about the experience. They thought they could break me by making me doubt my own mind. Instead, they showed me exactly how strong it is. Sometimes the people who try to tear you down end up revealing just how unbreakable you truly are. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. Through the security camera, I saw Beth holding up takeout bags and wine. A regular girls' night, something Eleanor had always disapproved of. I smiled and went to let her in. Life wasn't just back to normal, it was better than normal. I was free, strong, and surrounded by people who actually cared about me. Sometimes losing a toxic family is the healthiest thing that can happen to you. And the best revenge, living well, knowing they have to live with the consequences of their own actions.